And welcome to KQED Newsroom. I'm Thuy Vu. Coming up on our program, the State Assembly's Republican leader, Chad Mayes, talks about why the GOP needs to do a better job on messaging. And the University of California released records on more than 100 cases of sexual misconduct across its 10 campuses. Plus, the all-male ballet troupe that defies ballet conventions. We go on point with two dancers from the Bay Area. But first, as part of our ongoing coverage of the first 100 days of the Trump administration, yesterday Attorney General Jeff Sessions recused himself from investigations into Russian interference in the presidential election. This after it was revealed that he had met twice last year with the Russian ambassador.
Quote, I have now decided to recuse myself from any existing or future investigations of any matter relating in any way to the campaigns for President of the United States.
Top Democrats, including Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer, have called on him to resign for failing to disclose those meetings during his confirmation hearing. Joining me now to discuss this and issues facing California is Democratic Congressman Jerry McNerney, whose district stretches from Contra Costa to San Joaquin counties. Welcome. Thank you for being here.
Well, thank you for inviting me.
Well, what do you think of Attorney General Jeff Sessions recusing himself? Is that enough at this point?
Absolutely not. It's certainly important that he would recuse himself, but he testified under oath in the confirmation hearing that he did not have any connection to the Russian government during the campaign. That's clearly not the case. We need an attorney general who people can trust, who is above reproach. That is clearly not the case now.
Do you want him to resign?
Absolutely.
What do you think should happen in terms of a special prosecutor? Should one be assigned?
There's no question a special prosecutor should be assigned, an independent person who can both investigate and prosecute if crimes were committed.
The Republican congressman from Southern California, Darrell Issa, has said his party should do more to hold the White House accountable. Let's take a quick listen to what he said.
For credibility, we have to hold this president to the level of transparency that the last president made every effort to thwart. We have to make sure this is a transparent administration. And this is the best time for Republicans to show leadership. We show leadership when we hold our own party to a high standard, not just when we ask the other party to live up to a standard.
Do you think Republicans are doing enough? Are they showing leadership, as Issa says?
They're not at this point. We need an investigation.
Are Democrats doing enough on this?
We're calling for investigations. We're making specific proposals. It's time for the Republicans to come our way and follow through with an investigation.
You and two other colleagues on the House Energy and Commerce Committee introduced a series of bills, and it focuses specifically on cyber attacks. What would the bills do?
Well, what my bill does is requires all the devices that hook up to the internet, they're called the Internet of Things devices, to have standards and to have some way to certify that the devices meet those standards so that we don't have, we're going to have 20 billion devices hooked up to the internet by 2020. We need to have some confidence that those devices aren't going to interfere with the operation of the internet or other nefarious. Yes, that's right. They can be hacked. There was an attack in October that brought down the internet on the East Coast. That's the very least we need to protect against. National security is also involved.
Let's talk about the Affordable Care Act as well. Your House Energy and Commerce Committee also has jurisdiction over Medicaid and Medicare. The committee is supposed to vote on the ACA repeal bill next week. Have you even seen the bill?
No, we haven't seen it. We've heard some things about it, but we're going to be flying back Tuesday to start votes Tuesday night and Wednesday.
And on something you haven't seen?
We haven't seen it. You know, healthcare is a very, very complicated issue. It's going to be very difficult to make reasonable, informed decisions without having seen what we're voting on.
And then actually there was a tweet this week from Kentucky Republican Senator Rand Paul, and he basically said this: I have been told that the House Obamacare bill is under lock and key in a secure location and not available for me or the public to view. And he's a Republican, and he can't see the bill.
No, it's clearly a travesty. They're going to try and pull a fast one, but the public out there is well aware of what's happening. We had a town hall meeting in Martinez a couple weeks ago, and there was a lot of energy, a lot of angst out there. People are scared.
I also want to talk to you about the EPA cuts. President Trump is calling for cuts to the budget, to staff, to programs. We're hearing now that it may even zero out a San Francisco Bay program, take away $5 million that is now used for cleaning the Bay. What else are you hearing about its impact on California? What may be happening to the EPA?
Well, Twee, I haven't heard specifics like you're identifying, but when we cut 30% of the EPA budget, we're actually talking about eliminating protections of clean air and clean water that we take for granted. Several years ago, we had a fire in the Cuyahoga River. We had the Love Canal disaster where several people were hurt and killed. Those are the kind of things that we'll be aiming for if we follow through with those kind of cuts.
All right, we will have to leave it there. Congressman McNerney, I know you're also having a town hall meeting this Sunday. Thank you for taking the time to be here with us.
Thank you very much.
This week, the University of California released reports on more than 100 cases of sexual misconduct across 10 UC campuses. The incidents took place between 2013 and 2016. 3/4 of them involved university staff. Last year, UC President Janet Napolitano announced changes to how the university investigates and handles sexual misconduct on campus after outrage over harassment cases involving high-profile faculty. I'm joined now to discuss this further by KQED's California Politics and Government reporter Marisa Lagos, and also Selina Lao, a senior at UC Berkeley and a member of a campus committee tasked with reviewing the university's response to sexual violence and harassment. Welcome to you both.
Thanks.
Thank you. Marisa, KQED was one of several news organizations that requested the release of this under the California Public Records Act. What types of misconduct do the documents show?
They really run the gamut. I mean, we're talking about dozens of cases involving what you maybe characterize as more minor, verbal harassment, inappropriate text messages, maybe emails, some touching. The majority do involve coworkers, not necessarily people who are, working under somebody. But we did have at least 12 where the accused was in a position of power over the person under them, and at least 13 where there were allegations of actual sexual assault. And we're talking about some really egregious cases in addition to the other ones, including one in 2013 at UCSF where a professor was found to have coerced a doctoral student in his lab into a sexual relationship. He did not get fired. He got demoted. Another one at UC Merced where a professor was found to have hosted multiple wild parties where he would dance provocatively with students, generally make unwelcome advances towards female students. And, so a lot of them are very upsetting, and just the sheer number, I think, is what's really striking about it.
And were there any patterns in terms of where these incidents took place, or what kinds of punishment was handed out?
So the process has been in the past, and this is something we can talk about moving forward, it's changing, but has been very sort of disparate across the universities. A lot has been left in the hands of not just individual campuses, but individual supervisors, chancellors, deans within those campuses. One pattern and I should say we're still digging through these. I mean, it's a lot of information.
Yeah.
But one pattern we did really note that stood out to me was how many of them happened in hospital or medical center settings. At least 40 of the 113 cases were in that kind of setting, which does raise questions about the culture. You also have to ask, I don't think it's totally fair to say, well, UC Davis had so many. Does that mean they have a harsher sort of culture towards women or a more sexual harassment? Maybe they just have a better process for reporting them.
Selina, what are your thoughts on what was revealed by the documents that were disclosed?
Yeah, I think it was really concerning to have this many reports come out, but in reality, I think the number is much higher than 113 because of, who chooses to report. Absolutely. And at the end of the day, any number is too high of a number for something like sexual violence.
And we should say that these were only released cases that involved faculty or staff or somebody who worked there. The student-on-student incidents were not included.
Were not
in
included.
This. So
okay.
Who knows how much higher the numbers really are?
So, Selina, I wanted to ask you about the Committee on Sexual Violence and Sexual Harassment that was convened by UC Berkeley, the UC Berkeley Chancellor's Office last year. You issued a report last month. What were some of your key findings and key recommendations?
I think the piece on focusing on prevention is very important. So engaging faculty in this process of prevention and having it start with higher level leadership. So we're having a new position, an SVSH advisor to the chancellor, that will be a direct communication. And then I think the focus is on redoing the faculty process was very important. We need to make sure that people with higher authority are held to a higher standard and that they are moved through the process swiftly, because so much of their power has control over other people's lives.
What are you hearing from fellow students about their thoughts on how sexual harassment cases are handled at UC Berkeley and other UC campuses?
I think there's a lot of distrust amongst students, and I think that comes out in a lot of different ways. I think talking to my peers about this story that came out, not many of them were very surprised, and I think that we all want the university to step up and do a better job at adjudicating these cases and having more transparency and really responding more to the student needs and survivors' needs.
So Marisa, last year there was a lot of public outrage, right, over some really high-profile cases. We had one involving former Vice Chancellor Graham Fleming, the astronomer Jeffrey Marcy, former law school dean Sujit Chowdhury. In each of these cases, many people felt the punishment was too lenient. System-wide, what kinds of reforms have been put in place?
Yeah, so Janet Napolitano, the UC president, has actually created a new position of Title IX coordinator so that there are going to be, moving forward, processes that are followed across the board. She's also asked that when somebody in a position of power, like an administrative position, is accused of something like this, that it actually gets brought to the attention of the UC itself, not just the individual campus. But I will say, looking at these, it did raise real questions about how tenure and union rules impacted folks. You saw in a lot of cases, if a janitor was accused of something inappropriate, they got fired. Whereas if somebody was, higher up the totem pole, a professor, a doctor, an administrator, they had, it seemed, a lot more opportunities, and the process dragged on, as was mentioned, because I think that they had the opportunity to call in lawyers. So I think that there's rules around tenure and other things that are preventing that, but there's also just the power structure. And so that's a real, I think, point of concern for the UC, and something, to her credit, that Napolitano is trying to address.
And so Selina kind of alluded to that, right? When you said the students want to see people in higher positions held to a higher standard as well. This is to you both. Investigating sexual misconduct falls under Title IX, right? The federal law that mandates equal access to education regardless of gender. Is it possible, though, for colleges and universities to do a good job of being an impartial investigator at the same time as trying to also support the accused and the accuser and play all those roles and protect the university's image all at once?
I mean, I asked that same question to some folks at Cal CASA, which coordinates rape crisis centers and has worked on this issue. And what was interesting to me is that they really feel like this is, it can be a parallel process, right? This is not to say you can't go to the police, but I think there are cases, especially when it's more like, say, low-level harassment, where students don't necessarily want to get the police involved. They just want that other student out of their class. They want that TA to leave them alone. And so I do think it's important to have some other sort of avenues for folks, but I think that's going to be an open-ended question.
Selina, real quick, in your thoughts on that, can the university system play all those different roles at once?
I think it's difficult, but I think I definitely agree that there should be another process within the university for those interim accommodations for students that are very important, to just remove them immediately from a space where they might not feel safe. And it's my hope that that throughout consulting with staff, faculty, and students, that they'll be able to develop a fair and equitable process.
Okay. On that note, I want to thank you both, Selina Lao and Marisa Lagos. I know you still have a lot more data to dig through,
Yes,
so thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Last weekend in Sacramento, Republicans gathered for their annual statewide convention. California Assembly Republican leader Chad Mayes was there. He sat down to talk with us about his working class roots and how to connect with voters in a state where the policies of President Donald Trump are proving deeply unpopular. KQED senior editor for California Politics and Government, Scott Schaefer, has more.
So to those who don't know you, which is probably a lot of people in the Bay Area, tell us a little bit about yourself. I know you're the son of a pastor.
Mom and Dad ran a small church in Yucca Valley, and Mom was a school teacher, principal of a small Christian school that I went to, K through 12, and I grew up with folks who believed that all people were equal in God's eyes, and so when I see the world, I don't see people from different places. I see everybody having the same value, whether you're rich or poor, whether you come from this community group or that community group. They're all equal in God's eyes.
And how does that play out in your politics?
Well, it plays out in my politics because for me, I think people matter. I think that the work that we do in government, the work of governing, is just that. We should be putting policies in place that make people's lives better. And again, it's not about rich or poor or those who are in the middle class. It's making sure that all people can thrive.
This is, of course, an overgeneralization, but people tend to identify the Republican Party with more wealthy and whiter voters and the Democratic Party with low-income working class. I know that wasn't exactly how it played out in the last election, but does that reputation and that image trouble you as a Republican?
It does trouble me because that's not who I came from. If you saw the house that I grew up in, and my first car that I drove was a 1973 Datsun truck, and its primary color was rust. And I started working when I was 12 years old, throwing newspapers, and had to put myself through college. And I think that really is the story of many people here in California. In California, we really have become two Californias. If you live on the coast, you tend to be doing very well, or at least one would think. If you live inland, then people aren't doing very well.
You've made poverty an issue for your caucus,
yeah.
And I'm wondering, what is the Republican prescription or solution for poverty, for the issues you just described?
Well, we do believe that when you empower individuals and you empower businesses to make decisions for themselves, that it really lifts all boats. I do believe that free enterprise really is the key to fixing poverty, but that doesn't mean that government can't, and there shouldn't be government programs. In fact, I have a bill myself this year that will increase CalWORKs funds for those who are on CalWORKs if they go and get a high school diploma. 65% of CalWORKs recipients in California don't have a high school diploma. Well, if you don't have the education to go work in this new economy, it's pretty difficult to make ends meet. So again, we believe in free enterprise. We believe in low taxes, limited government, less regulation, because that ends up actually making people's lives better. But at the same time, we need to make sure that government programs work.
So why hasn't that message been heard, or why hasn't it been effective?
It's interesting, actually, when you look at some of the data that we have, when you talk about the messages that we have, the issues, Californians are with Republicans. Here's our problem. Californians don't like Republicans. Now, the truth is they don't like Democrats either. They just like Democrats a little bit more than they like Republicans. I don't think we've done a very good job of letting people know in California that we care about them, that we care about issues that affect them, and that we're working on their behalf.
What do you think they don't like about Republicans?
Well, I think just like we were talking about, I think that there are these labels that have been put on us that I think are false. This idea that somehow if you're a Republican, you only care about white people, you only care about owners of big corporations, and that you don't care about all people. And I'll tell you, that's just not the case. It's not who I am. It's not where I grew up, and it's not the people that I serve in my district in inland California. I think we've got to work towards changing that image.
Do you think that for what you want to accomplish in your agenda and growing the party in California, is Donald Trump a net positive or a net negative?
I would tell you, I think he has an approach that is much different than mine. But he is the president of the United States. I do think that as Republicans, we have to reach out to folks. I'm not somebody who believes that it's best to get out your bullhorns, to scream into it, to try to effectuate change. I think it's best to have reasonable, rational conversations with individuals and to sit down and reason together to try to solve problems. That's my approach.
When you go to work in the morning and you work on the issues that you care about, whether it's poverty or immigration, whatever it might be, to what extent do you think of young Chad Mays growing up in Yucca Valley, with the rusted car and the parents who had, middle-class jobs. I mean, is that still who you are? Is that what you think about?
Yeah, every once in a while. No, I do this. I look at the town that I grew up in, and I often remind myself, like, wow, my goodness, I mean, we didn't have a whole lot growing up in Yucca Valley. The fact that I've been able to become a member of the state legislature is a big deal. And every single day I think about the next Chad Mays that's 9, 10, 11 years old that was playing basketball out on the basketball court. And I think about his life. And if we still have the opportunities for him, like there were opportunities for me. And so that does motivate me every day.
All right. Chad Mays, thank you so much for taking time to talk.
Yeah, thanks so much. Appreciate it.
You may think you've seen this classic ballet, but look closer and you'll notice the dancers in airy tutus and toe shoes defy convention. They're men. For 40 years now, the all-male Le Ballet Trockadero de Monte Carlo has been reinterpreting classics such as Swan Lake while also staging original works. They've entertained audiences in more than 600 cities and 30 countries. This weekend, they're coming back to the Bay Area, one of the places where they first performed. Joining me now are two dancers from the all-male ballet troupe, Bay Area native Chris Ouellette and Josh Thake, who hails from Chicago but trained here in the Bay Area. Welcome to you both.
Oh, thanks for having us.
Well, Chris, let's start with you. You're from San Francisco. You've danced with the Pittsburgh Ballet Theater. What drew you to ballet? The troupe is also known as the Trocks.
Yeah, my introduction to ballet actually started here with KQED. My mom brought home a video of great performances, San Francisco Ballet. They were performing Cinderella. And at 2 years old, I watched it every day, all day. And it didn't hurt that it was hosted by Kermit the Frog and Miss Piggy.
Oh, always inspirational forces for 2-year-olds. That's wonderful that you knew from 2. That's what you wanted to do.
Yeah, it's my dream.
Well, Josh, you trained with the San Francisco Ballet School. What made you want to become a Trock?
I didn't know that the Trocks were actually even in existence until I came to San Francisco, and my late friend Brent Kleckner introduced me and had a DVD of their performance, and I was so enthralled with the male-female aspect of the company that I was immediately drawn to it, for sure. Best of both worlds.
Well, in your performances, right, there are times when it's easy to forget you're not typical female performers, that male-female thing you were just talking about, but the tutus, the beautiful makeup, the beautiful dancing, but then you remind us that this is not regular ballet. Let's just take a quick look at what you do. So do you think about the stereotypes you're defying, getting back to the gender roles, and do you focus on that, or you focus mostly just on the dancing?
We have a really balanced show, so we definitely want to give audiences moments of the heroine and the prince and the villain. But I think as the show progresses, we focus more on our technique and our performance. And the audience themselves, they forget, that we're men and they just see our dancing. So I think that's a nice point to prove to people.
And you're serious dancers, but kind of also mocking the, not so serious side of dancing, right? Really kind of having some fun with it. So what is it like, Josh, to balance these two forces, the serious dancing side and also the campy humor?
I think they work together. If you see a performance and you see somebody that's a serious dancer and someone that maybe makes a mistake, that's actually a moment where the audience can take a pause to realize a very human aspect of what the art form is, and it kind of breaks the barrier of something that's taken seriously, but then also you can make light of that seriousness and that type of almost stuffy demeanor of, I have to be perfect at all times. But then there's a break, and then that break, it's almost the humor hits you even more intensely from that serious aspect.
So then what do you hope audiences will take away from your performance?
A night of fun. I really want, we definitely do our job just to hear people laugh. It's coming from a trained classically in a company, where you perform classics. It's kind of an addiction now just to work with your audience and just have the best time in the theater together.
And do you think that amid all the fun, though, do you think about sort of the ramifications of what you do, maybe on a political or social scale, especially given the times that we live in now? Do you see yourselves as possibly helping to bridge the differences that are dividing so many people in this country?
I think Ballet Trockadero has been doing that since the first time they performed in a New York City loft. I think that we are active participants in an ever-changing, volatile political climate where this type of art is needed now more than ever, so that people realize that you can make light of gender norms, you can make light of things that people might even deem as, oh, well, you can't do that because that's that's not conducive to a heteronormative perception.
Mm-hmm.
But it's gifting people the opportunity and the ability to redefine what it is for themselves.
Chris?
I agree. I mean, we definitely have the freedom to play with, a masculine or feminine side, and I believe that those are inside of everybody. I mean, I don't think it's weak to be a sensitive man, and I don't think, it says something less about you if you're a strong woman. Yeah. So just to bridge all of that and to be the beacon for that and for people to see that, and I think it's really empowering.
All right, in 30 seconds that we have remaining, just real quickly, I want to point out that last month at the National Dance Awards in England, one of your fellow dancers, Chase Johnsey, won the Best Male Dancer Award. What does something like that mean to your troupe?
Well, it's the first time.
It's amazing.
Yeah, it's the first time a male has been nominated for his role as a female, and for him to get recognized for his work is just, it's unbelievable. He works so hard, and we're all just so proud of him and what it means for where we're all evolving as people.
Yeah, and it goes again to what you've been doing for decades now, defying stereotypes. Thank you both, Chris Ouellette and Josh Thake with Le Ballet Trockadero de Monte Carlo.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
And we want to point out the Trocks will be performing tonight and Saturday at UC Berkeley's Zellerbach Hall. To learn more and to get tickets, you can go to calperformances.org. And that does it for us. For more of our coverage, go to kqed.org/newsroom. I'm Thuy Vu. Thanks so much for watching.